You're about to tap into the fan's perspective, where all things entertainment are talked about by the fans who love them the most. Now let's dive in with your host, Chris Laporto. What's up, everybody? And we are back here on the Fans Perspective podcast, brought to you courtesy StarsandCelebs.com, where you can get all of your entertainment news, play some quizzes, check out some celebrity interviews, and much more great content, all available at StarsandCelebs.com. Don't forget about Chud.com for all you horror lovers, where you can get your fix of everything horror, sci-fi, the paranormal, and so much more at CHUD.com. My name is Chris Laporto, and I'm happy to be back to you here on the Fans Perspective after a little bit of a hiatus. Been gone for probably about 3 weeks, but we are back. We are fresh as hell. We are ready to go, and I got some great guests with me here today, and we've got a fun topic. We're going to be talking about Nightmare on Elm Street because the anniversary for the first movie is only about a month away, maybe a little bit more at this point. And we're going to do kind of what we did if you listen to the Friday the 13th episode where we ranked the entire franchise. We're going to do the same thing for Nightmare on Elm Street. And it's going to be a lot of fun because I am joined once again by Tara. I don't want to introduce her because I've done it enough. But Tara, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And we have a brand new guest, first time ever on the show. Welcome, Dan.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being a part of this. Been looking forward to doing this with you guys for a while now, so I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. Can't wait.
Yeah, excited to be here.
All right, so first things first, we have guests, which means we have guest questions. So I'm gonna start. Let's start with the newbie. Your favorite horror movie character?
Favorite horror movie character. All right, this is a little tough for me, right? Because I'm kind of a big horror junkie, especially like older and more on the schlockier range. So I've been thinking, like, is it Tall Man from Phantasm? Because that dude's so creepy and so weird in those movies. I saw them at such a young age. They buried themselves deep in my brain. And I have such weird kind of like fever dream memories of that. But I think ultimately I'd have to go with either Pinhead from Hellraiser, because Hellraiser is terrifying in my opinion, or Angela from Night of the Demons. I'm a huge Night of the Demons fan, so she's not the best character, but just because I think that movie is like the best of schlock horror, I think I may be leaning more in the Angela camp.
Dan, I think that this can be the start of a beautiful friendship for me and you.
Awesome.
Tara, I know we kind of touched on this on our Friday the 13th episode, but I'll ask you again. It's Jason, right? Is it still Jason? Isn't that what you said last time?
No, that's yours. Mine's Freddy.
Yours is Freddy. Okay. So why is it Freddy?
Because Freddy's awesome. He has so much personality. I think he's pretty artistic. There's nothing scarier than like someone using your greatest fear against you. Like Jason is cool. He's like vicious and like just like, you know, a beast of a character and a villain, but there's something very charismatic about Freddy and just like scary. Like one, we all have to sleep, so you can't really avoid him. And then he also knows all of your inner secrets and darkest fears. So I think he's terrifying. If he were real, I mean, it would be a huge problem. Like Jason would probably be less of a problem than like a real Jason would be less of a problem than a real Freddy. And then he has a cool costume. He has like a little fedora, cool sweater that's supposed to like give you anxiety because apparently the colors red and green next to each other does that. So he's just cool overall, and it's kind of based on somewhat of a true story based on what Wes Craven said years ago, that some guy in Vietnam, I believe, was having like night terrors and said someone was gonna kill him, and then one day he just like was asleep. He died in his sleep. So I think he's the coolest because he has the best backstory, costume, and just character overall.
I would like to call out that you said that a cool costume equals a fedora. I just want to make sure that everyone
excuse me,
understands that.
when I say a cool costume, first of all, I actually hate hats, but I think collectively, like when you see a fedora, you think of Freddy Krueger. So I think I would say more iconic than cool.
Right. Yeah.
His overall costume is iconic. The glove, the hat, the sweater. I mean,
Yeah.
when you see it, you know who it is.
Sure. The Christmas sweater. I mean, red and green is terrifying.
Goodbye, Dan. This is the end of the episode now.
Oh no.
For me, it's Jason. You know, Tara said it before, but like as I mentioned, we did this Friday 13th episode where I said it was Jason, so it's no surprise. Jason Voorhees is my favorite, and I mean, you talk about iconic looks. I think he rivals Freddy at least. If it's not, if one is not more popular than the other, it's only because they're kind of tied, in my opinion, as far as their iconic status. And Jason to me is just the ultimate badass. Like when he became Zombie Jason in Part 6, I think that's when he took that step to the next level, just being the ultimate iconic horror character. And I love his look. I love how Kane Hodder portrayed him, just made him have a little bit of personality. And yeah, I think probably I watch Friday the 13th movies more than I watch Nightmare on Elm Street because I just like watching Jason more. Not that I don't love Freddy, I absolutely love Freddy, but Jason's my number one. All right, so next question. Dan, favorite horror movie?
Well, I feel like I already alluded to that, but it's Night of the Demons. In my opinion, Night of the Demons is the perfect horror movie. It's all of the tropes that you want. It's the Halloween is the only night that evil can roam the earth. It's teenagers, breaking the law, breaking into a house to have a party that they're not supposed to have. Promiscuous teenagers. They're having sex. They're drinking. Right. You got the bully. You got the jock. You got the innocent. You've got the goth girl. You've got demons that are stalking these kids, killing them off. You've got puns after each death. You've got absurd, over-the-top, cartoonish level deaths. It's, in my opinion, perfect. So, Night of the Demons.
And plus, it has the best surviving character ever.
Roger.
Roger's
hysterical.
You won't get me and just jumps out the window. That's the best part of the movie.
I love his total disregard for what's the girl's name? Alice. What's her name? The other girl, the other survivor, the blonde, the innocent girl. Whatever. His total disregard for helping her survive as well is like the best part of the movie. Like Angela's coming down the hallway and Roger doesn't even tell her. He just runs away.
Yeah, jump out the window. Last year at the Alamo, on October 30th, they played Night of the Demons, and my girlfriend and I went to see it, and the guy that played Roger was there.
Oh,
and
it
was awesome. And he looks, I mean, granted, this is like 30 years ago, so he looks 30 years older, but shockingly similar. And his voice is exactly the same, so it was really surreal to watch. It was awesome.
He's the real star. I'm so jealous.
That's
cool.
Yeah, yep.
Tara, favorite horror movie?
My favorite horror movie is Scream. I think it is also a perfect film. I think obviously it gets many kudos for kind of reinvigorating the slasher genre after kind of following like Jason and Freddy, who had kind of like, almost disappeared after like the early 90s. And so I think people kind of forgot about the genre, and Scream did an amazing job. You can't not talk about the iconic opening scene with Drew Barrymore. It's just like, I remember like watching it for the first time and just being like, I think I was just like staring at the TV. Like I was probably halfway through the movie before I was over it, because I think obviously she was marketed as the star, and then for her to just get like not only just killed, but kind of like savagely like torn apart pretty much was just like crazy. And then like all the satire and all the meta references, I think it's just amazing. And I was already a big Nev Campbell fan because my sisters watched Party of Five. So I don't know, I just remember like falling in love with it. I love the franchise in general, but I think Scream is another example of like a pretty perfect horror movie.
Yeah, and Scream is definitely a franchise that we're gonna have to cover on the fans' perspective at some point, because it's definitely iconic. For me, favorite horror movie, I mean, I can go so many ways. It's such a hard thing for me to answer. Recently, I think the last episode I did was just rounding out my top 10 favorite movies overall of all time. And I mentioned The Lost Boys,
Yeah.
the vampire movie from 1987, as one of my favorites, just because I've watched it so many times and it's still so fresh and original to me. Like it's not dated, it doesn't get old. Kiefer Sutherland as David is still just, just like the coolest vampire ever. And everything about that movie is great. The soundtrack is great, which soundtracks I think are so important to films. The whole look and feel of it. I mean, it's so 80s, but
Yeah.
it's not cheesy. Like it's so just done well and cool and hip, I guess.
And not to mention, they're all hot, all the vampires.
Well, Jamie Gertz is hot in the
Okay,
movie.
I'm not talking. She's not even a full vampire, so I'm talking about David and his friends. Clearly,
That movie
especially
holds
the one
up.
with the black hair.
That movie does hold up.
I literally, my girlfriend and I just watched that last weekend, and it holds up. Like it's still a good movie. I mean, yeah, it is pretty pretty 80s. I think the only part of it that doesn't hold up is that big open air concert that they're at, where the super, I don't know, was the guy like oiled up or something,
Yeah.
like playing
Playing
like
the
rock saxophone. Yeah.
Just like shaking his hips really hard.
Yeah, that's the only part that I think just
I mean, I
doesn't
think
stand
that
the
was
test of
awful
time.
even back then.
Yeah, I think you're right.
He was
Like I feel like that guy, like clearly, someone owed someone a favor to get that guy into the movie. Like, there's more of a backstory there. We should dive into that. That can't just have been in the script, and they're like, yeah, we need a heavily oiled up, muscly guy playing rock saxophone. This is what the kids want.
But I love that song that he did. For that scene, that song is awesome.
Yeah, it is great.
I try to block that out. I can't even tell you what that song is. I'm not getting any recollection of that song because I just ignore that man.
But I wanted to throw another one out there that is definitely one of my favorite horror movies, and for the life of me, I can't get Tara to watch it. And that's John Carpenter's remake of The Thing
Oh my god.
from 1982. I
Yes.
mean, it's often talked about, especially now, remakes and like they're overdone. Everything is remade, and they don't usually stand up to the original. But The Thing is a perfect example of a remake that surpasses the original in every way.
Yes.
And it's like, in a lot of ways, it's the perfect horror movie. It's creepy, it's scary, it's got a monster in it that will gross you out and terrify you, and it sticks with you. And just the whole atmosphere, the setting of it, it's acted really well. Everything about it just is incredible. So
Well, I
Yeah.
think that movie is incredible because, I mean, the original obviously was an allegory for the Red Scare, right?
Right.
And the second, when John Carpenter remade it, he stripped that away. He walked away from the political and just made it a case of pure, like, perfect isolation horror. And just, yeah, the setting of, they're trapped there. They don't know who they can trust. You don't know who's who. And then, couple that with Stan Winston's practical effects are just mind-blowing. That's another example of a movie that still holds up and is still, like, when you watch that, you think, how the hell did they do that? Like the scene where the head strips, breaks away from the body, grows legs, and starts running away. Like they just did that in It Chapter 2. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And it looked so much worse, and that was 30 years apart. And this is with, cutting-edge digital graphics. And that practical effect, in my opinion, looks so much better than what they just did in the most recent It. Like, that movie is incredible. Tara, we should just stop this podcast right now. Go watch that, and then we'll pick this back up when you guys are
All
done.
right, busy. Maybe
Yeah.
sometime in the next decade.
Oh, come on. That movie is perfect.
I definitely agree with the practical effect thing that you said. Like to me, practical effects are better. I mean, CGI is good, and it's come a long way. I think the way that they did Thanos in the Avengers movies was like
Oh,
that was perfect CGI. Like that's a good example of CGI that works.
Yep.
But I think more often than not, it doesn't work, and it looks too cheesy. So when you go back to a movie like The Thing and just look at the practicality of it, and it
Yep.
still holds up,
Yep.
that just means that it's just a special movie.
Well, that's what I and I've had this conversation with Tara before, obviously not on this podcast, but that's what I love most about schlock and the like older horror movies is that it's all just someone has one very simple idea. It's a scary killer that you can't avoid, and he's hunting you with a machete, whatever, right? And they have a couple good ideas for kills, and they've only got like $50,000 to do it, right? And they figure out that $35,000 of that is going to have to go to those effects, and the rest is going to have to go to equipment, actors, writers. You know what I mean? And so it's like it's typically subpar acting, terrible lighting, like just like the bare bones everything. But then when it comes to that awesome kill, they put everything that they can into that, and that's it. Just I don't know. I love it. I love watching the ingenuity behind getting that shot and making that death, or those eyeballs pop, or those, you know what I mean? Those kills look so good. Like I think of the Kevin Bacon arrow through the throat in the first Friday the 13th, right, as being like one of those like iconic deaths that just like works so well that they clearly put 90% of the time of that movie into that scene. I don't know. That's what I love about these movies so much. I think it's I don't know. There's just something really, really awesome, really fun, and really, really great about that.
All right, to me, the best decade of horror movies was probably the 80s. A lot of great stuff in the 90s and a lot of great stuff in the 2000s, but I think the 80s has more of the iconic horror movies, but also the hidden gems. All come from the 80s. So definitely the best decade, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would echo that. I would, for sure.
All right, so last question here, and this should be a fun one. Favorite Freddy kill?
Who's going first? Me?
You go first. Yeah, you go first.
All right. I'll have to say Greta and Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Dream Child,
Really?
when she had eat herself to death. Yes, simply because I remember that movie when it came out. That came out in, I think it was 88 or 89, so I was 5 or 6 years old, and I remember going to the video store to rent a movie on like a Friday night with my parents, and I remember I would always sneak away to the horror aisle and like look at the new releases, and I remember looking at the back of the box, and they had the image of Greta with those giant puffy cheeks
Yeah.
and like the vomit and the food around her mouth, and I just remember not just being scared by it, but creeped out and grossed out at the same time, because it was just so, I don't know, I'd never seen anything like that at such an early age. And so because of that, that always just stuck with me. And also it's like, it's a borderline like Looney Tunes level death. Like Freddy comes in in his like chef outfit, and he's got this weird nightmare scenario where everyone's there watching her, laughing as he's force feeding her this like doll flesh. It's so bizarre and over the top, but it just is permanently burned into my brain. I have to go with Greta.
I mean, I have to say, like, that one, I feel like that one used to be a very underrated, I feel like, and I think I watched part 5 again maybe like a year ago, and I remember being like, this is actually gross. I think I never realized that he was feeding her guts. I think I always was like, he's just like stuffing her and she's gonna like explode. Like I didn't think that much into it, but it's actually it is pretty gross, I think.
yeah, and it's just so weird. I don't know, just like I don't know, her giant cheeks is just like
it's scary as hell.
That will haunt me. I have a feeling that like on my deathbed, as I'm passing away, like one of the last images that will like fire my brain will be Greta's puffy cheeks. And just
I specifically when she's hanging out of the fridge at the end, when I think when he like Freddy's showing Alice that she's dead and she's in the fridge and she's like going help, and her cheeks are just like disgusting. That one is the image that's burned in my head. Not so much the dinner scene, but her in the fridge.
Yeah.
It's definitely Looney Tunes-ish. Like I think that's a perfect way to describe it. Like you said, like it's like I can picture Bugs Bunny doing that to like Elmer Fudd or something.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why like I think like Tara's point about Freddy being the most terrifying, I don't disagree with that. He does have the most personality, but he has the most, like, he's clearly insane. Like his personality goes from creepy, serial killer in the first movie to just full blown cartoon, like he's like the Mask basically. He's Stanley Ipkiss if Stanley Ipkiss was a murderer, you know what I mean, like a psychotic murderer. Just like he comes up with these wacky freaking scenarios to kill people in the most cartoonishly absurd ways, and he's just cackling the entire time because he's so unhinged. So it is terrifying that you can never get away from him. Yes, we all have to sleep. Yes, we all dream. So you're right, you can't get away from him. But also at the same time, I just feel like if I was being murdered by Freddy, I'd be afraid, but I'd also be like, really? This is how I'm going out? Like, oh, how embarrassing. You're making me eat a doll to death. Like,
Tara, favorite Freddy kill?
Favorite Freddy kill, the honor goes to Philip in Dream Warriors. I think that scene single-handedly,
it's an awesome scene, yeah.
Single-handedly makes me very eerie and aware of dolls. I don't like little dolls hanging on shelves or just any in general. Definitely not a collection of dolls. One is enough, but like a bunch of dolls creeps me out because I'm just waiting for the second that they come to life, claymation style, and then grow at the foot of the bed. Also, another like random, I feel like every time I'm in my bed, I do sometimes, and this is gonna sound very strange, I do sometimes will look at the foot of the bed and just like see Freddy grow the way he does at Philip's bed when he transforms from the doll. It's something that always is with me. Like whenever I look at the foot of the bed, I'm like, shit, like what if Freddy just like grew right now and was standing there? It's something that has always scared me. I think Dream Warriors in general is probably one of the second creepiest of the entire franchise. But Philip's death, from the way Freddy, kind of appears, it's the first kill of the movie. It's basically like a grand slam, like right at the offset of the movie. It's super dramatic. It's kind of gross. You get a little bit of my boy Kincaid, like with kind of like a have a nice stroll asshole. So everything is just hysterical. The fact that the nurse doesn't see Philip wandering down the hallway, bleeding everywhere. It's actually just really disgusting. Like, I think kind of like Greta's scene, like it's when you think about it, like he's literally stringing this boy up by his tendons and his feet and arms. It's disgusting. So I think, and then just watching him, I think I felt like all the kids at the window watching him fall down, because like it's just like terrifying. Like he was awake or kind of awake, and Freddy literally threw him off like I don't know how many stories that building is, but it was just such a terrible way to die, and it was such a strong start to like that movie. So Philip definitely gets, the A+ in my book.
That's a scene that it kind of like I feel it in my own body when I'm watching him get cut and then the tendons come up, and like it makes me squirm a little bit. And I'm not easily squeamish, but that always kind of makes me like I'm just like, ugh, like I can't imagine what that feels like. But that's definitely probably one of the most famous Freddy kills and scenes ever.
One of them.
But for me, it's Tina from part 1. I just think that whole scene itself is terrifying and scary. I mean, think about what Rod is thinking as he's watching Tina crawl up, go up the wall and on the ceiling, and she's being just hacked to death, and he can't figure out what the hell is going on. Like he's just
way
like,
too many things to think about. And if I was Rod, like, just like, what the hell is
like
going on?
He doesn't know what to think.
Get me out of here.
He doesn't know what to do, and she's being savagely murdered. But at the same time, it's supernatural in the sense that she's like floating in the air and being killed. And
I mean, they were just sleeping, so he's probably like, he's probably like a little disoriented, like probably thinks he's still like, it's just like so many things happening to him in that 2 minutes. I feel so bad for Rod, and obviously Tina as well. But like Rod, it's probably so many things running through his mind, right? Like, am I gonna be blamed for this? What the hell is happening? Am I next? I can't get out. The door's locked. What the fuck? I'm still sleepy. Like, so many things going on. I feel that scene is, and then her screams are just horrifying.
Yeah, and I would say, to go back to like what I was saying about practical effects, that shot itself is so well done, like that entire scene, because they invert the room, she's sliding all over the ceiling and up the wall, and the blood's pouring out and she's screaming. It's such a visceral scene, and even like Johnny Depp's death later in the film, you don't see his death necessarily, but the way they do it with him getting sucked into the bed and then just the explosion of blood coming out is so clever and so like beautifully like conceived and shot that it's just so terrifying and weird. And then his mother like opens the door and like loses her mind. Like, it's just, I love that. It's so smart.
I know that like just in like hearing stories and watching documentaries over the years, I know they spent like a tremendous amount of money and effort and time building that rotating room, that box
Yeah.
set. And so I feel like if I was one of the people on set, I would just kind of have calm and peace about knowing that that all my effort produced probably two of the greatest scenes in the entire franchise.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right, so Nightmare on Elm Street, the original one came out in 1984, November 9th. So we're a little bit over a month away from the actual anniversary. It would be 35 years since Freddy Krueger was born. Starring Heather Langenkamp, Robert Englund, Johnny Depp, John Saxon, and directed by the legendary Wes Craven, who is no. When did Wes Craven pass away? It's been a few years now, I
2015
think,
or
right?
2016.
We actually met Heather Langenkamp at Monster Mania in New Jersey, and she couldn't be nicer. I just thought she was really nice and sweet, and definitely made that experience mean a little bit more because you never know what to expect when you meet these actors and celebrities, and just the fact that she was so nice made it that much better.
She's basically Nancy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think
Yeah.
they're one and the same.
Yeah, she was really nice, and also we got to sit in, I should say, on a Q&A session for Robert Englund. We didn't get to meet him like personally, but we sat in the room and listened to him talk, and he was very fun and just cool.
He is like a natural born storyteller. Like I
Yeah.
feel like every question they asked him that could have been answered with a simple yes or no, or just like a yes or no with a little bit of anecdote, he like turned into like this like almost like a poem, or like it was just like very like he had such vivid answers for everything, and he's definitely um a cool guy, and you can tell he really loves being part of the franchise, and Freddie really is, almost like his little
It's his
love,
baby.
his little love.
It's
Yeah.
his baby.
Yeah.
It had a $1.8 million budget and grossed $25.5 million, which to us nowadays might not seem like a lot, but I mean that's a hell of a profit. And in 1984, I'm sure it's even more. Probably 25 million probably goes a lot further than it does today. But 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now this movie was actually received well when it came out in the theaters by critics, which is a surprise because I feel like horror never gets the credit that it deserves. Critics usually hate it,
Yeah.
unless it's something like Rosemary's Baby, which I wasn't a fan of, to be honest. But
Stupid movie.
I was
That's more.
uh-huh.
Sorry, go.
No,
Sorry, I
go
was just gonna say that's more like highbrow horror, right? Like just like very conceptual. This is more slasher and gore. So yeah, no, I agree. It is a bit surprising that it was a critical success as well.
Even Scream, that was a critical success and commercial, has only a 79% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's like what more do they want? Like Scream should not have and be in the 70s.
Yeah.
How much stock do we actually put in those ratings?
Like, when it comes to horror, not much, in my opinion.
Right.
Honestly,
I would say definitely don't care what they have to say about horror movies.
Yeah, definitely. Like especially with horror, but like when they say certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, like do they really think that fans are looking at that and going, "Oh, now I got to see it"?
No, I don't. I think the opposite is true. I think when you see something that's a major stinker on Rotten Tomatoes, that might it influences me anyways. If I see that it's got a terrible score, I'll be like, all right, maybe this isn't all that great. But um, never the positive. If I see like, wow, it's got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes or 90 or whatever, that very rarely makes me go see it. Most of the time, I've already wanted to see it, or you know what I mean, already had an intention. Very rarely does that push me over the edge to see it. But it will work in reverse occasionally if I'm like, oh, that movie looked interesting, and then I see it's just getting panned. I'll be like, all right, maybe I'll wait till that comes out later and rent it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much the same for me. I don't like put too much stock into it, or like it's not a big kind of point of reference when it comes to making a decision. But I do look for it and I do take notice, and it kind of, it'll just give me like a perspective, or like I know what kind of mindset to go into the theater with. Like most of the time, like okay, like critics love this, me, because I just feel like they're so harsh. So I do know, like I do take notice if a movie has a high Rotten Tomato score, because I feel like they're super harsh, and they kind of like everything is usually, they put everything in like the 30s, no matter what it is. So if it is high, I mean, I think I just kind of changed my POV going into the theater, but I ultimately make the decision of whether or not I'll see it.
Yeah, I try not to base what I want to see or not want to see on it, but I think that there is a certain level of we pay attention to it a little bit. Like if I see something has a 50%, I'll probably be like, who knows. But I tend to find myself become a little more intrigued when things are ranked or rated higher. But for the most part, it's something that I've already wanted to see, and I'm going to see it regardless.
Right.
But Freddy Krueger was ranked number 40 on AFI's 100 Heroes and Villains list, the American Film Institute. So out of all the heroes and villains, he's ranked number 40. Do you agree with that?
40? Oh, hell no.
I mean, but that's a long. I mean, that's a lot of characters to consider.
Who was like on the top list, like Dracula and stuff? Stupid people like that.
I didn't go through the. Well, Dracula's not stupid.
Yes, he is.
Oh man, Tara with her hot takes. Dracula is stupid. Oof.
I don't know. Those Chris has this like collection of like I think the original horrors. What is it called? Original Horror Masters.
It's the classic Universal monster movie.
Yeah, it's horrible. Like this Wolfman and Dracula and Frankenstein. It's horrific.
They should still be appreciated.
All right, sure. I mean, I also.
Tara, I don't need to explain nothing to you.
I appreciate vegetables. I don't love them. I think it doesn't.
See, Tara. I don't even know where to start.
Well, I don't like black and white movies most of the time.
Oh my god.
Very few black and white movies I can get through.
You're missing out on a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, holy crap.
I'll watch them, but it's like I'm not gonna jump to watch a black and white movie.
But Nightmare on Elm Street is always considered one of the greatest horror movies of all time. If you look up any horror movie list, it's usually close to the top, if not number one. And we went through what our personal favorite horror movies are, and none of us mentioned Nightmare on Elm Street. But where would you put it on your list? Of
the franchise or the movie?
The original movie.
Like,
is it top 5, top 10?
Top. It could be maybe top 5, definitely top 10. I'd have to like sit down and think about it, but I think perhaps top 5, definitely top 10.
I would say it's top 5 for me.
Yeah, I would. Oof, it's tough. Yeah, I'd have to sit down and think about it, but I'd say it's most likely in the top 10. And if it doesn't quite make the cut for top 10, it's still up there, like definitely top 15. I just feel like there's so many. Oh man, I've seen so many horror movies and love so many different types. Like that's, but it's clever, it's terrifying, it's well acted, it's well scripted. That's a tough call. Yeah.
I mean, they have Bruce from Jaws before Freddy Krueger. Like, this is ridiculous.
Well, I mean, that's terrifying.
All right, sure.
To me, it is.
Sure, but not before Freddy Krueger.
But see, Jaws is a more real fear. Like, have you ever been to the ocean? Have you ever gone swimming in deep water?
And I
I will not because of Jaws.
Exactly, and that's what I mean. Like, I'm not afraid to fall asleep because of Freddy, but I am afraid to jump into deep ocean water because of Jaws. Like, I've been in the ocean, I've been swimming, I've been snorkeling, and when you're in water like that where you can't see, like, the bottom, or you can't see, it's not like a pool where you jump in and you can see the walls are 5 feet either direction. When you're in there and it's nothing but just blue that fades to black because it's just so deep, your mind plays tricks on you, and that kind of stuff is terrifying. There's a reason that Shark Week does gangbuster ratings every year.
Yeah.
It's because great whites especially are terrifying, and they're real. You never hear, or you very rarely hear, a story of someone dying because they had a nightmare, but you hear a story every year about someone being attacked or killed by a shark.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a few that happened this year.
Yeah.
I'm not disputing that Jaws and sharks are scary, but this list is insane.
Yeah, I'm gonna bet. I haven't read that list, but I'm sure that, like, with all lists like those, they have to be a little snooty, a little highbrow, a little like, well, actually, Jaws is.
Like the evil queen from Snow White is number 10 of the villains.
That's insane. That's ridiculous. No, okay, this list is no.
I'm like, this is a little crazy.
That's ridiculous.
Before the Alien and Alien.
That evil queen was just a jerk. She was just a mean lady.
Number 1 is Hannibal Lecter. 2 is Norman Bates. 3 is Darth Vader.
That's hard to argue.
Yeah, I mean, those are pretty
fine,
solid.
But like all these things in between are crazy. We have to do a whole episode. I think we should do an episode on this ridiculous list.
I'm in.
We could look at that list and give our perspective. See what I did there?
Michael Corleone is not a villain.
No, it's heroes and villains.
No, this is the villain.
Well, Michael Corleone is a villain. Actually.
Not really.
Yeah.
It's all about perspective.
Okay, fine. I see what you did there as well.
One moment, I'm
I wasn't talking to you.
It's time to introduce our fourth podcast member, Siri. Yeah.
So speaking of, you said that you're not afraid to go to sleep or die in your sleep. But the inspiration of this movie, and Tara touched on it a little bit, came from stories that were written in the Los Angeles Times. I think was it the 60s or the 70s?
Yeah.
About easy for me to say, Southeast Asian refugees who came here from Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, who all suffered disturbing nightmares and actually caused some of them to die in their sleep, which they called Asian Death Syndrome, which pretty hardcore name for that. But,
that sounds like a metal band for sure.
Yeah, absolutely a metal band. But yeah, so apparently this has actually happened where people have, had such terrifying nightmares that it caused them to die in their sleep, which I would guess their nightmares, because I've woken up from nightmares and been like, holy shit, like that was scary. So maybe it's caused people to have heart attacks and maybe that's what they're dying of. But they're saying that, this is directly connected to the nightmares that they were having.
I feel like I've read somewhere or heard that, like, if you don't, like, you can have a heart attack if you, like, die in your sleep and you actually are still in the dream when you have impact. Like, if you don't, like, most of the time you wake up before you actually, like, whatever, like, falling from a building, you'll wake up. But, like, I've heard that if you actually, have impact, you'll have a heart attack and die. Which is
I feel like that's scientifically unproven. I feel like that's one of those,
Dan, are you
urban legend myths. I'm just saying. I feel like, and also like these people that died from their nightmares. Like, how did they determine that? How do these people just not have a heart attack in their sleep? You know what I mean? How did they go like, oh no, they were definitely dreaming and it was scary?
I think they were saying that something was terrorizing them in their dreams. Like, that was the whole thing. It was like something was bothering them and trying to kill them.
So, like, one entity, you're saying?
Well, I mean, this is not Dream Warriors, Chris. I don't know if they were all having a huddle and talking about this one man looking for them. But they were all saying, like, something, like, they were having these night terrors and something was trying to kill them. Or that they felt unsafe going to sleep. And it was like, deal with it, get over it. Very similar to the parents in the movie. Like, go to bed, get over it. And then they died.
So how often do you dream of things trying to kill you?
at least once a month.
That's it.
Wow, really?
I feel like
Yeah.
I dream about it like every night.
Whoa.
Uh,
I feel like you guys should maybe see a therapist.
I feel like I mean sometimes it's more than like more often than not. Like October when I'm watching a ton of horror movies, I might think about it a little bit more. But generally, I don't have a ton of like nightmares where someone's trying to kill me. I do find myself always trying to run and can't move. And not necessarily someone's trying to kill me, but I'm just trying to move and I'm not going anywhere. That happens probably twice a week.
Yeah, I have versions of that dream where either you can't move or you can't make a sound, like I can't scream, or a weird version of that, I can't see. Like it's like I lost my glasses, but it's even worse than that. Like it's super blurry vision and I can't get my eyes to focus on anything and I know that something's nearby. Those are terrifying.
That sounds
I actually I don't know if suffer is the right word, but I'm afflicted, I guess, with sleep paralysis that I have on a fairly regular basis, which is terrifying because I mean, look, I'm to the point now where I realize it when it's happening. But basically that's when you're caught between sleep and awake. So I'm cognizant of my surroundings, but because I'm still half asleep, I imagine that there are people in the room or in my apartment or trying to get in or, and you can't do anything about it. You're just completely frozen. And those moments, I used to, you'd like, eventually you snap out of it. And I used to then just go back to sleep immediately. And the problem is you'll fall right back into that cycle. So now I've realized that like when I finally snap out of it, I've got to get up, go get a drink of water or something, let myself fully wake up before I can go back to sleep. Otherwise I'll just end up in the cycle. But those are pretty terrifying. But aside from that, I don't often have dreams that, someone's trying to kill me or,
Well, Dan,
I'm
as a
dying.
licensed therapist and a certified scientist, I will tell you that Freddy Krueger is trying to kill you, and that's what's happening in your dream.
Yeah. Well, and he's doing it in the weirdest ways possible because more often than not, he's basically just in my hallway apparently talking, and I just can't get him out.
I will say that Freddy Krueger is solely responsible for giving me kind of like, I guess, my own version of a dream power or something really like a cool trick that I can do. When I was probably somewhere between like 11 and 12 years old, I was having nightmares of Freddy like every night for like probably this went on for probably like 2 to 3 months. Just every single night he's trying to kill me. I would like wake up in cold sweats. My palms were like completely drenched. Like I was always like shaking and like breathing heavy, like terrible. And at some point I learned how to wake myself up. So now when I'm having nightmares, I can very easily wake myself up. Like I don't stay in them very long. Like the second I sniff out danger, I'm like, oh, time to wake up. Let's start
That's
this
incredible.
Over. Let's start this over.
You can actually do that?
I can literally wake myself up when I'm having a bad dream.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So I found my dream power, guys. I'm a dream warrior.
Wow.
Yeah, sounds like it because I don't think anybody else can do that.
I can do that. I'm like, the second things get crazy, I'm like, oh hell no. Time to go. And I wake up and I kind of like reset and then I like, will give myself like a second and I go back to sleep and I'm usually fine. Like 8 times out of 10, I go right back into like a better dream.
You see, like movies like Nightmare on Elm Street and characters like Freddy, like I can watch it, I can put on any one of them at midnight and go right to sleep when it's over and not really care. The movies that scare me and make me like kind of have to maybe watch
Supernatural, like Conjuring.
Yeah, like stuff like The Exorcist or the Exorcism of Emily Rose, like stuff that has to deal with demons and being possessed.
Yeah.
Not so much Night of the Demons, but actual demonic possession. That terrifies me more than something like Freddy would. So those movies, I can't really watch it and go right to sleep. I have to put on like Family Guy or something and just kind of wait until I pass out. But like Freddy is never something that ever really. I mean, he is scary, but he never made me not want to go to sleep.
Well, I think all these characters make me move differently in my real life. Like I will not go to the woods. Thank you, Jason. I will not fuck with dolls. Thank you, Chucky. Yeah. and also Puppet from Dream Warriors. I don't play with like anything that looks like it could remotely be related to a leprechaun.
Oh, come on.
I don't play with little farm boxes or things that have cryptic messages and weird symbols on them. Thank you, uh, Evil Dead. Thank you, Hellraiser. It's like horror movies
Yeah.
make you live smart.
But you think
Wait,
Huh?
wait, do you come across things like that often in your day-to-day life?
I do not, but but the day that I do, hopefully I have many more decades to come. Should anyone ever come to me and say, "Hey Tara, I found this box in my basement. Do you want to
Yeah.
play with it? Do you want to open it?" No, I'm going home. Goodbye.
I get that, like, hey Tara, do you want to go for a hike? That's a fairly ordinary, like, no thanks, because I've seen Jason. Hey, I found this Marchaud's box in my dead grandma's basement. Do you want to play with it?
Very possible, Dan. Like when you live with adventurous people, like the person I live with,
Yeah,
who
okay.
always curious about weird things. You have to be on your P's and Q's.
All right, fair enough.
I'm probably just not. I'm not interested in any of that stuff, and so I'll let you have your fun.
who are you referring to?
Yeah.
Hey Tara, how was your day? Hey, by the way, I found this Necronomicon. You want to read from it later?
The only thing Chris will not explore is a Ouija board. That's like the only thing that scares him. Everything else is like, oh, this looks cool.
I would never do it by myself.
Whatever.
So Ouija boards to me, I think, are hilarious, right? Because I mean, and no offense, Chris, I don't mean to trivialize this at all, but that is a game that is made by Parker Brothers.
Oh no, I get it. I get it.
Parker Brothers that also makes like Monopoly or whatever, Twister, Operation, whatever other games that I'm probably screwing this up. Those are probably Hasbro games, but anyways, it's a mass-produced game by a factory in like Trenton, New Jersey or something, and people like imbue all this meaning into it. I love that.
That's a fair point. I get it though. All right, so Freddy Krueger himself was inspired by a kid who actually used to bully Wes Craven in school.
The name, I think.
The name,
It's
Fred
Freddy,
Krueger.
Yeah.
And yet you said before the red and green sweater was chosen because the colors clash with our retinas, which that's something I've never noticed.
It's just supposed to make you uneasy.
But does it?
Yeah.
But I'm asking you. Does
Yes.
it?
Yes.
It doesn't to me. Does it to you, Dan?
No, it doesn't. That's
No,
why
weird.
I find that note interesting when Tara mentioned that. Like,
People
those are
have
literally,
but both of you guys
literally-
have eye problems. Chris has colorblind, obviously,
I
and
am
Dan
not
wears glasses. So maybe y'all are crazy and don't see it.
I am not colorblind.
I know that red and green, when put next to each other, vibrate. I get that. I understand color theory, but I just feel like his red and green is so muted that effect isn't that strong.
I mean, but then he would look crazy. He would look comical if they had him out here like legit red and green. Like he would look silly.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying, like, I find that, I don't know. Also, it's just so heavily like a Christmas color. Like, he's so obviously wearing a Christmas sweater.
Nothing about the outfit screams Christmas to me at all.
It doesn't, because I feel like because of all the meaning that you've imbued it from watching the entire series. But I feel like if the Nightmare on Elm Street movies never existed and someone walked into your office wearing that, on December 22nd, you'd be like, cool Christmas sweater, bro. Like, you wouldn't be like, oh my God, this is horrifying. I feel so uneasy. Tara, are you there?
No. Not listening to this nonsense.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
All right, so how about the movie itself? It's a quick synopsis. I mean, and everybody I feel like everybody knows who Freddy Krueger is, and they know what the movie is about. A bunch of teenagers that are being stalked in their dreams and killed off one by one by do you think he's a demon? Is he a vengeful spirit? What would you classify him as?
I guess a vengeful. He's a demon, I guess, at this point.
Well, no, not yet. Don't we find out later that he's? I mean, I don't know. I'm jumping ahead a lot of movies, but
yeah, we find out later on that like these three demons gave him the power to come back.
Yeah.
Like he's a dream demon.
Yeah, but that came much later on. I think he's, when we get to Dream Warriors, he's presented as just an uneasy like spirit, a vengeful ghost almost.
Yeah.
I never really got ghost from him. A spirit or like I think just a demon.
Yeah, well, that's probably what makes him unique, is he can be all of that and none of it at the same time, I guess.
I also feel like if you look at part 6, the scene where they kind of show that interaction, I can't really tell if he like dies or if they just kind of like take over because he's not burning yet, and they come and they're like, hey, just so you know, you're about to burn, so you have about 30 seconds to tell us what you want to do. Like, I don't think I don't know if he's necessarily died. Like, they didn't necessarily allude to him being like dead. Like, I think he's just like almost like taken.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that movie sucks anyway.
How do you really feel? Oh god, yeah, well, that movie sucks.
So the lead character is Heather Langenkamp. She's
My
Nancy.
girl, Nancy.
Johnny Depp. This is his first starring role.
Yeah.
Oh, and fun fact, because me and Wes Craven's daughter have so much in common. Wes Craven was going through all of the like actors and like all their headshots, and he was like, trying to decide who was gonna be Glenn. And I think his niece or daughter or someone like a teenager in his life, can't remember exactly who she is, was like, ooh, dad, like, ooh, Uncle Wes, like, this one's hot. And like he was like, okay, and like put Johnny Depp in the movie because he knew that he would have like appeal with the girls. And then obviously we see what Johnny Depp would eventually become. But it's just funny that someone's niece was like, oh, he's cute, and they were like, okay, we'll go with him. And I also very much agree with his niece.
Of course.
Excuse me, him and his little crop tops, the whole movie is fantastic.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that cropped jersey that he sleeps in with a giant like 19-inch TV on his lap.
It's the third best part of the movie, his crop top.
Yeah.
Isn't his death scene considered to be the scene that uses the most blood in history in a movie, something like that?
That is now It Chapter 2, Jessica Chastain. Thank you very much.
All right, so before that, it was that.
I don't know.
I've
I've never heard that be referenced as like the scene with the most blood.
Yeah,
there's no way it can't be. It's literally a gajillion gallons of nasty blood.
like
right?
to scale, because I'm trying to think of like the elevator blood scene from The Shining. If
Yeah,
that's
there's
to
that,
scale.
that too. Yeah, that probably has the most. But I thought it was mentioned as being the most blood used in a scene. I'm probably wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Nancy's friends are being killed off. She's also fighting Freddy in her own dreams and starts to pretty much unravel because she's not getting any sleep. She finds out that her parents were responsible for killing Freddy when he was alive because he was a child murderer and was killing off a lot of the local kids. So they took the law into their own hands. After he was caught, but then was released on a technicality. So the parents decided to kill him themselves, and he came back for his revenge.
Can we pause? I feel like
Pause what?
No, I just have a question. I feel like through all the movies and like between the remake and all these other things, I feel like what was he? Is he a child molester or child murderer?
So when I was researching for our episode today, Wes Craven changed it for the first movie from child molester to child murderer because he was afraid of exploiting it, and he was afraid of the backlash for
and
it.
also offending real child molesters.
So it was changed. So officially, he was a child murderer.
Okay.
Yeah, in the first movie, he was. Yeah, they said he had killed 22 kids.
Yeah.
Because I thought the same thing, because I just rewatched it just to prepare for this podcast, and I also remembered him being a molester.
Right.
And when they just said murderer, I was like, wait, have I been wrong this whole time?
First of all, 22 kids is a lot. Like that's
a lot of kids.
The fact that
That's
they
the
would
other
get
thing.
him, like that's kind of insane. That's
Yeah.
a lot in a small town. That's damn near every kid.
Exactly.
That's definitely a lot of kids.
There's also they elaborate on the TV series. The first episode of the TV series that ran, I think, in the late 80s, early 90s, explores like that backstory and like shows him like the arrest and all that stuff kind of in depth. It's kind of cool. It's a little ridiculous, but it's just cool to see like how he's like in the court, like on trial, and then the stupid idiots at the police department sign a warrant in the wrong spot, and then he's like, okay, bye, thank you, I'm free. It's just like very silly and like what a mistake. Like whoever was the person that did that wrong, the warrant situation, I mean, they should be on trial also.
And what a brutal commentary on our criminal justice system. Like really.
Not
At its heart, that's really what Nightmare on Elm Street is all about.
yeah, not that far fetched either, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I get the law is the law, but I think that's so crazy that you can have proof that someone killed 22 people, and because someone signed a paper in the wrong spot, they're free to go. Like that's
Yeah,
insane.
it's a little nuts. Let's talk about the ending sequence of the Nightmare on Elm Street when Nancy figures out that she can bring things out of her dream into the real world. So her plan is to bring Freddy out, and she
Which is
creates
crazy, hella crazy.
she creates all these booby traps in the house for him.
First of all, that little book that she had, like, it literally said like booby traps
Yes.
for the home. Booby traps for dummies.
That whole final scene is hilarious because not only is it like so obviously like a Home Alone, you know what I mean, like a pre-Home Alone, like she is Kevin McAllister, but she just spoke to her dad and said, "Come over here in 20 minutes and wake me up," and then she takes 10 minutes to set up like 15 elaborate traps in the house, and then still has enough time to like go back, like change into her pajamas, even though she knows her plan is to pull Freddy out of the dream world. Like she wants to be apparently in her pajamas instead of like normal clothes, like ready for combat, and like fall asleep, wake up. Like all of this happens in the span of 20 minutes. It's insane.
I feel
Yeah,
like
the ending time line is a little off there.
I feel like there's also like a little flaw in like logic because like I mean in this movie and then just in all the movies to come, we learn that Freddy is like almost like watching them all the time. Like he knows like like all their conversations they're having at school. Like he knows everything and sees everything.
Yeah.
He didn't know that her plan was to bring him out, and like he didn't see her setting booby traps. Like he just like because honestly, if I was Freddy, that bitch would have fell asleep and I would have never showed up. Like she wouldn't have for like a week later.
Yeah.
like why would I walk into that? He could see it, or like at least that's what we were led to believe that whole time. He walked right into it. Made no sense. I would be like, she's crazy. I'm not coming to that.
But how about those booby traps that she set up though? Like the first one is the sledgehammer from the door.
Which is something I think is dangerous. Like if she makes the wrong move, that's her.
Yeah.
I mean that you can kill anybody with just one shot with a sledgehammer. Then doesn't he fall down the stairs after that?
He does. Yeah, he falls over the banister.
When she blows up the little lamp, I die.
That part is crazy.
Yeah. He like falls over it. That shit is
because it really it doesn't hurt him. It just scares him, and he falls. Like,
And then she sets him on fire in the basement.
Yep.
Yeah, ultimately setting her home on fire.
Set her home on fire.
I also feel like these booby traps like all are like just too close to home for me. Like I need booby traps where I don't have to be anywhere around. Like she has to be so close to him for all these traps. I don't like it. I want to be as far as possible.
And how about the whole time when this is happening, she's screaming out the window for her dad.
And no one has urgency.
Well, the cop is watching her, and he's like, "Oh, that's okay. Everything's gonna be okay."
He's like, "Help me, you help me, you bastard! Give my phone."
His reaction is essentially, "Everything's fine. Go back to bed." Like she's literally breaking windows and screaming, "Help me!"
To make it worse,
like, "Women are hysterical. Calm down, little girl. You're fine."
Like to make it worse, it's his boss's daughter. You would think he'd be a little bit more attentive, just off the simple fact that it's his boss's daughter who he was told to watch.
And then he actually says, "Maybe I should go get the sheriff."
Yeah. The sheriff literally says to that guy. The sheriff literally says to that guy, "Keep an eye on their house. Let me know if anything funny happens." And he says, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "I don't know, just anything funny." Those are the exact lines from the movie. I feel like his daughter breaking windows and screaming, "Help me, he's in here, he's in here," might be a little funny.
I hope he was fired after that. Like, 100%. If I was Nancy, I'd be like, "Thanks, Dad. I'm so glad we're okay. Can you please fire Officer Idiot who did not help me for the first 15 minutes of this?" Can we also talk about her drunk mother who put the bars up in the first place?
Oh my God.
Yeah, put the bars on the window.
Would have been pissed off.
Yeah, but how about when she dies? That's a part that when I was younger, that scene stuck with me a little bit.
The mom?
The mom when the mom dies and the skeleton just floats into the bed.
Because it's funny, he's on top of her choking her on fire.
It's pretty creepy at the end though when she's like just going into the bed and Nancy and her dad are watching. Her dad is just like, what the hell's going on?
First of all, the dad didn't seem too concerned. Honestly, he was kind of like, one less person to deal with. Like he didn't seem too bothered by it. I think he was part mesmerized, but also like he was like, whatever.
The dad, that whole scene is so weird. Because one, I think it's hilarious that Freddy clearly wants Nancy, right? Like that's his goal. And when he can't get Nancy, he's like, guess I'll just kill the mom now. I'm on fire. I'll jump on her now and make her dead.
He was like,
And then-
it's almost a wrap for me. I'll just kill her.
Exactly. And then Nancy and her dad walk into the room and watch her mother burn into like a half skeletal corpse. The skeleton like waves as it as it phases into the bed, which I'm assuming is like her like, you know, phasing into hell or something. And then immediately after, the dad just gives this like kind of weird like, the hell was that look? And Nancy says, I just need a minute. And he's like, okay, bye. And leaves her alone in a room where they just watched this all happen. Like, Father of the Year, he is not. Like, it's like, I just, the only rational explanation is he's in shock and he has no idea what's happening and he just has to leave. Yeah.
It's a lot to process, I think.
Yeah.
But, you know, then Nancy realizes that Freddy is still there. And he comes up out of the bed. I like that part when he kind of pops up out of the bed and uses his claws to shred it up. And she just...
He's burnt to a crisp. It's hilarious.
You know, she remembers what Glenn had told her about taking away the power by just not paying attention. So she turns her back on him. He disappears. The end scene of the movie, to this day, confuses me.
Yeah.
It's like, what is it supposed to actually mean? She walks out. Everything is like she's outside. It's all bright. Sunny, her friends are still alive. Her mom's alive. They get in Glenn's car, and then the top closes, and it's Freddy's sweater is now the top part of the car.
Right, which makes Tara very uneasy.
Yes.
Yeah, you know. I think it's meant to. I think we're meant to believe that Freddy's not really dead, and that everyone is actually dead.
But is she dreaming that sequence? Are they alive again? Is she dreaming?
They're not. They're definitely not alive, as we learned in part 3. And
right, we learned that later on. But at that moment, what are we supposed to think for that?
Well, I think that's the point, right? Like they didn't know they would get a sequel, so I think they left it very ambiguous and like for like open to interpretation because you know they didn't know they were gonna get 7 more movies or 8 more. So they were like, okay, like let's just let everybody think what they want to believe and like leave it like this. Like and they've actually said that they were just like we didn't know if we were getting a part 2, so we left the ending open for Freddy to come back or for people to just assume that Nancy was actually dead. Like it's like 3 different possible endings, I guess. So
I always took it as she, you know, that's her dream. She's dreaming that everything's fine and that's proof that Freddy's still alive. Except when he kills her mom by pulling her through the door, she's not there to witness that, so that's a pointless thing to do if it's in her dream, which is what threw me off then. I was like, well, wait, what's happening now? You know?
Viewers, I guess.
Yeah, that's just for us, the viewers, because Nancy didn't see that. She's already, you know, a block away at this point.
Street, yeah.
Which is that's a cool scene too, and like he you know sticks his arm out and grabs her, and as he's pulling her back, her like head snaps.
I need to watch it again. I didn't see her head snap. That's kind of
cool.
Yeah,
because she's like a rubber doll basically, and the doll like the head like snaps forward so it can fit through the door. It's another great shot.
All right, so we're gonna take a quick break.
Wait, can I ask you guys a question? Who is your favorite of the 4 friends? Rod, Tina, Glenn, and Nancy. I guess I'll take out Nancy because obviously Nancy is the final girl and like everyone's favorite. But of the 3 friends, who did you like the most, or who did you relate to?
I mean, I guess I related to Glenn more, but I think Rod was just funny. When Nancy says to him, like, you know, when he's on the run, and he finds her, she's walking to school, and he's like, I don't know what happened. She goes, well, weren't you in the room with her? He goes, what do you think, I'm a fruitcake or something? Like,
yeah.
But I kind of felt bad for him at the same time. You know?
Yeah, of course. He's traumatized, and the cops are running him down the street.
Yeah. But I think probably Glenn.
Yeah, I think Glenn too. Just, I mean, because I would relate with him. Like, it is kind of insane. You know, everyone's like saying, you know, or your girlfriend's kind of losing her mind, being like, oh, I'm being chased in my, you know, sleep. I'm going to sleep. I need you to sit here and watch me and stay awake. And she's so mad at him that he falls asleep. Like, he's like,
Glenn, you bastard.
Like he's anything special though. I mean, he's just another teenage boy. He's just like, okay, sure, I'm gonna hang out in this room all alone and just oh no, I'm asleep too. You know what I mean? Like, obviously he's going to go to sleep. Like, you just drank 4 pots of coffee and took 50 of those stay awake pills and you're falling asleep. He's done none of that and you're mad at him for sleeping.
something that I realized and kind of like that they never actually I guess, bring to light whether or not Glenn actually saw Freddy. I think they gave us hints that he did. Like in the scene when Rod is like explaining like the guy that was in his dream, like they cut to Glenn and he's kind of like glaring like, oh shit, this sounds familiar. But like the whole movie, he's almost in denial. Like he refuses to believe that his friends are seeing these things. You know he's seeing it, but I love that they just kind of never like he never admits it. He dies without ever saying like, or he always acts like his friends are crazy. But we know
Yeah.
from little hints that he's also seen Freddy. But he literally died in denial. And the worst part, he died a virgin. Poor Glenn.
Well,
Poor Glenn.
just because
Not for
they
lack of
didn't
trying.
have relations on screen here doesn't mean that Glenn. I mean, he was. Did you see that crop top? Like, come on.
Wait, are you saying Glenn is not a virgin?
Oh yeah, I'm saying I feel like
Glenn is
maybe
a virgin?
maybe in this
Totally a
relationship.
virgin.
I don't know.
Damn.
He's pretty dreamy.
Well, yeah, that's true.
All right. So we're going to take a quick break here, and I'm going to leave you, faithful listeners, to a quiz question. And speaking of Johnny Depp, and it's kind of an easy one, but speaking of Johnny Depp, this isn't the only time that he made an appearance in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Can you name the other movie that he appeared in? And you can answer that question on the Fans Perspective homepage at starsandcelebs.com. You can follow us at Fans Perspective Pod on Instagram, and you can answer it there. And also answer it in the comment section right here on SoundCloud where you're listening to this episode. While you do that, we're going to be back in just a few seconds. All right, now comes the fun part where we are going to rank each movie from worst to best. And I think this is probably going to be the most fun to do because Tara has given me a heads up on what your number one movie might be, Dan. So be prepared.
Oh man.
So yeah, this is how we're gonna do it. I'll let Dan go first, and then Tara, you can go, and then I'll go, and we'll just kind of rotate that way. We'll each give
Say the number, say the movie, and then a little color.
say the movie. We'll throw a little dialogue back and forth, and we'll go from the worst all the way up to number one.
Okay.
All right, so this is going to be a little bit tough because I've seen these all a lot, and they all blur together for me.
Oh,
so this is going to be a bit rough.
All
I'm
right.
looking forward to it, Dan.
Yeah, right. But I would have to say, if I was going to say the worst, I think I'd have to go with Final Nightmare just because I remember it least. And so it sticks out to me least. And in fact, I can't remember anything notable whatsoever. In fact, I before this recording, I was reading the synopsis and I was like, I barely remember that. You know what I mean? And so just based on that alone, I feel like it made the least impact. I'm going with that as my worst.
So you mean New Nightmare?
No.
Oh,
Freddy's dead.
Freddy's dead. Okay.
Freddy's dead. Exactly. Freddy's dead.
Tara?
Worst movie on the list, number 9, is the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. Just horrific all around. Acting, the change to the characters. They changed Nancy from like this, lovely, bubbly girl next door to this gothic, emo, annoying girl. The characters, like, I didn't care about any of the characters. I think with a slasher movie, well, it depends, right? I guess there's two types of slasher movies. One's like the ones where you like everyone is just filler and you're kind of rooting for the villain, kind of like Jason movies, where you just want Jason to just kill everybody. Then there's like movies like Scream where you actually like care about Sydney. You want her to survive. This movie, I mean, at the end of it, I was like, are these people still alive? Like, who cares? I remember I saw it in college. I had like a ton of friends who had never seen a Freddy movie before. And I was like, oh, like Freddy's such a cool character. Let's go see it. They were like, okay, like let's get like, they were interested in exploring. And then I came out of the theater and I like was profusely apologizing because it was horrific and a waste of everyone's time. I hate Jackie Earle Haley as Freddy. He ruined the character. He's short. I hated the burn marks. I mean, the whole movie is just like doo-doo. And it rightly so has a 15% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I even think is a little generous. It should be probably below 10.
Okay. So the worst one for me is Freddy's Dead. And it's because at this point, it just got so ridiculous that it's, I don't even want to consider it a part of the Freddy franchise. I mean, when they're fighting Freddy at the end, they put on the 3D glasses and like that's supposed to like help them fight him. It's just,
and then they introduced him having a kid. It was just
yeah,
like
he has a kid. But it was so corny and so cheesy.
Yeah, it was really bad.
And one thing that I wanted to touch on before, and it kind of slipped my mind a little bit, is, but you mentioned it a little bit, Dan, is that he went from being this completely scary character to a comedy show. Yeah. So like do you think that affected Freddy's character overall, or did it make him more likable? Because I think as the movies went on, they got progressively worse, but I really wasn't feeling his comedic turn all that much.
I think the perfect kind of happy medium for him being scary and comedic was Dream Master Part 4. I think he was still like very menacing and like, his normal crazy self, and still had like a dark tone, but was also pretty like, pretty comedic and cool and like, trendy and hip. But like after 4, it was too much. It's like, this is not a comedy show. Like I'm like every kill had to have a pun or some kind of punchline. Everything was like really tongue in cheek, so it just wasn't. It was too campy. I think Part 4 is kind of where that lived and died. I think it made him less appealing, in my opinion. I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think, looking at the first movie, he had no real personality. He was just a scary entity, and it worked really well because of that. And they slowly develop his character over the movies, and it was working. Like, I think it was around like 2 or 3 that I kind of realized that he was Freddy Krueger kind of just became like a dick version of the Kool-Aid Man. I remember he just like come into people's house and he'd just like break things just to break things. Like I remember someone trying to get away from him and he'd jump right and knock a lamp over and they'd scream and then he'd jump left and knock another lamp over. Just like, well, screw this lamp and screw that. And you're gonna have to explain this to your parents later. You know what I mean? Like just like destroying stuff just to destroy stuff, but it worked because he was obviously like, the cat and that cat and mouse, like just toying with his victims thing. But eventually, yeah, I think, Tara, you're right. Like 3 was the high watermark for him. And then after that, it just got more and more cartoonish. It just got so convoluted and so complicated. Everything was so elaborate. He couldn't just kill anymore. He had to like come up with these crazy over the top scenarios that he had to play out. It was absurd. Like Freddy obviously had like a team of demon writers behind him. You know what I mean? That were like, all right, so here's an idea, like pitching him wacky death scenarios, and he's like, love it. That's what I'm gonna do to this kid. Perfect. Like it just was so absurd.
I think the fact that when Freddy was most elusive, and like when we didn't see a ton of him, he was just kind of like this looming, like Dan said, entity that was just around all the time. Was when he was best. Like Robert Englund didn't get top billing until Part 4 when Freddy was basically in every scene. But I think the reason why the other movies worked and were like more well received is because we don't see a lot of Freddy, so he's elusive and scary, and like you don't really know when he's gonna pop up. But once he became like the figurehead of the franchise and he had to be in every scene telling a joke, it got corny.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the worst from each of us. That's number 9. So number 8.
I would say the remake comes in at number 8. The only thing that I liked about it was Jack Earle Haley. I didn't like his makeup.
Ew.
But Jack Earl Haley is a creepy guy to begin with, and I think he's a really good character actor. And while no one can compare to Robert Englund, so please make no mistake, I'm not comparing him to Robert Englund at all. I thought his attempt was, I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is. I don't want to say honorable, but he gave it a go, and there was a tiny spark there that could have worked, but overall, the remake, no thanks.
And just when I thought I couldn't hate you more,
Yeah.
you literally.
Just you wait.
How could you
All right, so what's number 8 for you?
Number 8 for me. Sorry, let me go back to my list. I believe I wrote. Okay, number 8 for me is Dream Child. Just another horrific movie. It's super boring. I hate Freddy's look in this one. He has very like dry skin. And you can tell like Robert Englund. That's when he like I guess started to get a little older. But like the makeup itself looks really strange. And then the overall story was really boring. Alice is having a kid, and like Freddy's trying to come through the baby. Her friends were all pretty terrible and not inspired at all. Didn't really care about anything. The only shining spot in that movie for me is Dan. I mean, not a shining spot because Dan dies, and I'm very upset about it. And I still want to write to the writers and tell them that they made a huge mistake. But Dan has like the coolest death, I think, and like the only good part about that movie. But it's overall pretty horrific and hella boring.
Okay. So number 8 for me is the remake, and simply because I just didn't care about it. Like I think the characters are stale and very unlikable.
Mm-hmm.
And Jackie Earle Haley, even though I think he's a good actor, I wasn't buying him as Freddy in this. I felt he was a little over the top with it. And yeah, I just, Nancy in this movie, they turned her into like this kind of emo, kind of goth character almost. And just the biggest problem I had with it, and Robert Englund even said it when we were sitting in on his Q&A there, that you just don't care about the characters. Like when they die, it's just like, so what, kind of.
First of all, when Tina died in the first one, she's because she's not in a movie long. She probably dies like the 15-minute mark. I was upset. I was like, damn, like my homegirl I was just getting to know is now dead. And like that, I went the whole movie. I think I forgot his name. There's like Nancy's little boyfriend, the counterpart boy. I forgot his name. He was in Jennifer's Body, whatever his name is. I think his name was Jesse. I don't know. Whatever. I kind of liked him. Like I liked him more than Nancy. Like if he was the final boy, I would have been okay with it.
Okay. So all right. So next, number 7.
All right. Number 7, I think I'd have to go with Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Dream Master. Again, just because.
My God.
Dream Master? Come on. Or you. All right. We'll see how high you rate that. Again, just because it blurred together with so many of the other movies. There's not a lot here. When I was reading, again, the synopsis, I was like, okay, that happened in Dream Master? Interesting. I thought that was another one. Maybe that says more about me than it does about the franchise, but because it's not sticking out a whole hell of a lot to me, that's where I'm going to go. Also, because, I'm going to double down on it because Tara apparently disagrees so strongly. Tara, are you still there?
Tara?
She left.
She left, yeah. You scared her off.
I did it. Yeah.
Sorry, I had to like take a second to just recalibrate because I just don't understand where Dan comes from. Like clearly some other planet that has no reason or way of thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, Dan. So you're just trying to make me angry here.
Yep.
7 for me is Freddy's Dead, which is part 6, right?
Yes.
Yep.
How is that not the worst one to you?
Because the other 2 exist.
Okay.
All right.
That's a good answer.
Freddy's Dead. I mean, horrible. The 3D effects. I hate that he has a daughter all of a sudden. I think I do have one part that I kind of like when there's like one kid who thinks the whole time that he's Freddy's son, so he kind of thinks he's like not a target or like is safe, I guess. He's like, I know you're not gonna kill me. I'm your son. And he was like, oh, do you think I'm your daddy? He like cuts him from like a parachute. I don't know why I think that part is so funny, but it's like the only good part about the whole movie. And then Roseanne and Tom Arnold make an appearance.
Oh God.
Oh God, I forgot about that.
Ridiculous. So it's so good.
Number 7 for me is Freddy versus Jason. And when this movie first came out, 2003, I was hyped for it. And when I saw it in the theaters, I thought it was awesome. I was like, oh, that was so great.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. I think the more you watch it, the more you realize that it's really not that good at all. And the main thing that bothers me about this movie is how much they just did not understand the character of Jason Voorhees. And the director, Ronnie Yu, I mean, literally in interviews and like behind the scenes when you watch like featurettes about making the movie, he presented and told the actor, just think of Frankenstein, that's who Jason is. And it's like, no, it's not. You know, and Kane Hodder, he thought he was going to be in it, and then it wound up that he wasn't.
Yeah, they played my boy. They brought him to lunch, gave him the script, and he was like getting all ready. Even Robert Englund was like, yes, me and Kane are going to work together. And then they just hired someone else and never contacted him again.
Yeah, so, I mean, the missed opportunity that you realize that movie was just really makes it just disappointing. And plus, I mean, Monica Keena, such a terrible actress. I mean, I wasn't.
Kelly Rowland. It's Jason. So many bad things about it.
Yeah, the guy who plays Mark was good.
Yeah, he carried the movie. When he died, the movie died.
And of course Robert Englund is always great.
Well, that's a given. But, I mean, from all the new players, Mark was the standout.
I just think that and we've watched it a few times, and I think to a certain extent we do kind of enjoy watching it because it is something that we revisit. But you just realize, at least I do, the more I watch it, the more I realize it was a missed opportunity and just a failed attempt at making an exciting crossover.
Yeah.
But I think Dan will disagree.
Yeah.
Dan is like, gearing up.
Moving on.
Number 5.
Number 6.
This is 5.
This is number 6, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, number 6, I would have to say is number 5, Dream Child. While I have fond memories, as I mentioned earlier, this again is this is absurd. Like Freddy, the scene where he like announces it's a boy, like it's just like
that's our other favorite part.
Yeah, I don't know why, but for some reason that just again is like stuck in my head, and I'm just like,
that's so funny.
It's just because it's like, again, like we kind of mentioned, this is now he's on the camp side of Freddy, he's on the downslide. It's just so cartoonish and over the top, and just the only good things about it I remember is, honestly, I remember again going to the video store and they had one of those giant cardboard cutouts of Freddy leaning over the carriage, the creepy like smoking like baby carriage. I don't know if you guys remember that or not.
Yeah. It's awful.
Yeah, the demonic carriage. Yeah,
he has like mascara on and like eye makeup. He looks terrible.
Yeah. So there, that's my answer.
I miss the days of going to the video store and renting movies.
Right?
You can still do that at Blockbusters in Ohio, I think. Or
no, I think one left is in Portland.
Yeah, Portland. Yeah. They're all
that's the only one.
Number 6 for me is Freddy's Revenge Part 2. This is mostly here in this spot because I didn't know where else to put it. Like, it was like probably the one I was able to like. It was the least, or like the not the easiest to define, I guess, or like to rank. So I kind of just placed it here. It's an interesting movie. Like, it's definitely a departure. I feel like 3 is a direct sequel to 1, not only just because of Nancy, just because I feel like there's like an actual continuity, and like Part 2 just seems like it's almost separate, kind of like Season of the Witch with Halloween. Like it's in the franchise, but like is kind of weird and just like there in its own little island. Jesse is a hysterical character, like this teenage boy that just wakes up screaming all the time, and he doesn't know what's going on ever. Has one of the coolest scenes, I think, Grady's death. is pretty awesome. And then the continuation of that scene has Jesse, like I guess Freddy comes out of Jesse. It's a little weird. Um, but the movie's fun, but it's like sometimes I watch and I'm like really bored, and sometimes I watch and I'm like this is hysterical. I don't really know what to think of part two. I do like Lisa. I think Lisa's a good heroine. She's actually really tough. Like she was never scared of Freddy. Like she's one of the people, like the only people in the entire franchise who, like this maybe besides Alice, who like didn't give a fuck. She was like, "Who's this man? Like I'm getting ready to beat him up." So yeah, I really liked Lisa, and part two is whatever to me.
All right, number 6 for me is New Nightmare. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad movie, but I don't think it's a really good one either. And I get what they tried to do with it, and kind of make it seem like Freddy is coming into the real world, and everybody plays themselves. Heather Langenkamp plays herself. Wes Craven plays himself. And I think what Freddy Krueger really was in this was just like a demon that was using the Freddy persona to come into the real world. I think that's how the story was supposed to go. But for me, this one is just forgettable. Like what really wasn't crazy about it. So this is where I place that one. Moving on, number 5.
Number 5, I would go with Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. Just honestly, for all the same reasons that Tara just listed. It's not bad. It's not good. It falls weirdly in between. There are things about it that I like, things that I don't. I thought it was a notable follow-up. It was a good sequel. It wasn't great. Meh, I guess. And that's why I rank it here, to be honest.
Big meh.
Yeah, big meh. Yeah, exactly. So now we're moving into the, not terrible anymore. We're into meh. So now we'll start to be in the, I really like these because.
Yeah. This is the middle of the pack right here.
Exactly.
Right here, dead smack in the middle. Jason versus Freddy. I think for me it falls in the middle because it was, it was the beautiful thing that never was. It's high up because it was what everybody wanted to see. It was big ambition. Like it was the showdown of all showdowns. But then obviously it also fell very short for me. I think like you, Chris, I really liked it when I saw it in the theaters. Thought it was awesome when I left. Then watched it again a few years later, and I was like, all right, like that was definitely smoke and mirrors. This shit is terrible. And now more than 10 years later, it was like maybe 16 years old now, 2003, 2004.
2003.
Yeah, so it's just like I can't even watch it sometimes. It's so bad. Kelly Rowland is awful. Monica Keene is awful. Jason Ritter is terrible. And then of course, as you talked about, like the Frankenstein Jason is not good. Ronnie Yu, I think, Ronnie Yu needs to issue an apology to all Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th fans. Like I want a video and written apology sent to my home because I think it's a travesty. Like he literally admitted that he didn't watch and he had never seen any movie. It was like, well, how many movies are altogether? Like 17. He never watched it. He's like, I want to do my own thing. That's not what you do with two well-established franchises. I'm not gonna jump into Star Wars and be like, hey, I don't need to watch this. I'm gonna reimagine and do my own thing. Like that's not something. It's a sacred franchise, both of them. And I feel like he just came in and spat on everybody. Like it was not cute. And I think if Robert Englund wasn't in it, it would have been a total disaster. But it's only a slight disaster.
It's funny you compare it to Star Wars because that's why I hate Rian Johnson.
Yeah. Right. I was thinking the same thing. Chris, we are best friends.
We are. Number 5 for me is Dream Child. Pretty much because I just feel like, it is it's one of the lesser of the franchises, but it's better than the other ones that I mentioned on my personal list. But I realize that it's still not really that great. But for me, it's like we said, it's the whole meh thing. It's just like, yeah, whatever. Like I can watch it, but as I'm watching it, I realize it's not really that good, and it's definitely leans more towards Freddy's comedic side, which I'm not really a huge fan of. And we forget about the whole comic book scene too, where he's fighting the comic book artist and he turns into Super Freddy, and
Oh God.
It's so like corny. And, yeah,
You're right.
I'm just like, yeah, whatever. So that's number 5 for me. So number 4.
All right, number 4. I'd have to go with New Nightmare. Again, we're getting more towards the like end of these movies, like to love end. I liked what he was trying with New Nightmare. To me, what I see in New Nightmare is Wes kind of figuring out, like, these are the early days, or like the precursors to Scream, where he's trying to be more meta. He was trying to think more real world implications for this kind of stuff, and he was still blurring the lines between the dream and reality and stuff. That having everyone actually play themselves and making tons of winks and nods at the audience about like the production behind movies and things like that, I thought was really clever and breathed new life into a now dead franchise. But it worked to me, and like I said, I can see him working things out that he refined for the incredible movie that was Scream. So for that, I liked it. I very vividly remember when the trailer dropped for this. Again, also thinking holy crap, this is terrifying. Wait, so it's real?
Yeah.
Freddy's real? Whoa.
I do remember watching the trailer on TV, like the TV spots.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I remember too. Still kind of young. Was it 94?
94.
94. Yeah.
So I was 6. So maybe I didn't really. I mean, maybe.
That's it. You were 6.
Excuse me.
I was 9 years old.
You were 35 years old.
I was 11, you babies.
Oh my God, Dan was already on his way to high school.
All right, I'm done here.
I think Dan, this is the last time you and I will be friends on this podcast because I have the same number 4 and agree with all of the points you made about why it is great and belongs at the number 4 spot.
So that's New Nightmare?
Yes.
All right. So for me, number 4 is Freddy's Revenge, which is part 2. And to me, I always felt like, in the past when I would watch it, this movie kind of sucks. But this has the reverse effect that Freddy versus Jason does for me. I appreciate it more as I get older and the more I watch it, because it's just it's silly, but in a good way almost. I love the scene when he comes out of Jesse and he kind of crashes the pool party that's going on.
That scene is hysterical.
Where he's like,
he's
like, let us help you. He's like, help yourself, fucker, and kills the guy. That's great.
He throws him into the grill. It's so funny.
But there's so much of this movie that it raises your eyebrows, like when he kills the gym coach in the shower and he's hitting them with the towels, and and to listen to the producers and all the people that worked on the movie, they said themselves that they didn't realize how much kind of homosexual tones that they put into the movie until it was done and they saw it.
And years later, they were like, "Wow, we did not do this on purpose."
And
I love that tone blindness. You know what I mean? Yeah. That they did all that without. It took them seeing their own work to realize, oh my God, wait a minute, what does this say about me?
This man, he's trying to get inside of me.
Yeah. And not that I'm not shitting on that.
It's not.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It's hysterical that it wasn't on purpose.
It wasn't on purpose.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
To me, watching it, that scene when they got the coaches tied up in the shower and they're literally spanking his ass with the towels where he's got red marks.
Yeah.
I'm like, did they not realize what they were doing? Yeah, how could you not?
Yeah.
But that's what it is for me.
So good.
So number 3, here we go.
Number 3. All right. I'm going to come in with Nightmare on Elm Street number 3, Dream Warriors.
Okay.
I thought that this was a great entry in the franchise. I love Heather Langenkamp is back. I love that she, gets a team together, essentially. She assembles her, Dream SEAL Team 6 to try to fight Freddy on his own ground, right? Using her experience and her knowledge of Freddy. I thought it was fun. It was campy and weird at times. And it doesn't quite hold up. I just watched this one not too terribly long ago, and some of it's a little rough, but overall, a great concept, and I think it worked really, really well. It was a lot of fun. It wasn't as scary. It was more on the fun side, but a strong entry.
Okay, Tara.
Number 3 for me. This was doing the top 3 was actually really hard for me. I had to, because what ended up being number 3 is probably my favorite when it comes to rewatchability. I watch it the most. Like whenever I want to see Freddy, it's 9 times out of 10 the one I'm gonna pop in, which is Dream Master Part 4. I think it's super fun. Like love pop culture Freddy. This was like when they called the I think they called the MTV Freddy, where he was like super popular, had dolls and TV shows, and he was on backpacks. Like no people weren't really afraid of him anymore, but they were like he was more like Santa Claus, who happens to kill people. It kind of reflects in the movie. I think it's super fun. It has really good kills. Like I love Debbie's kill where she's like working out and he kind of turns her into a cockroach. She hates bugs. Yeah, I love part 4. It's so fun. I love Alice. I think Alice was a perfect follow-up for Nancy, who we obviously lost in part 3. And Alice, takes over. Oh, actually, Kristen. I guess she took over for Kristen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that movie. Part 4 is my favorite to watch, like on like repeat, I guess.
Yeah, Dream Master is also at number 3 for me. Because I think it's fun, and I like Alice as a character. I don't want to say that it's cheesy, but I think that there are certain parts of the movie that I can get why somebody would say it's cheesy, like when he's fighting Rick and he's like invisible.
Chris, don't make fun of them because they're poor. They couldn't afford to do a scene.
No, I get it, but then it's just interesting that they would do it that way. If they, like just the choices they made were interesting.
I will say part 4 has the best soundtrack. The music is dope. Like,
that I agree. Yeah.
The all the songs are like so fun. Like the song when Alice is getting ready to go whip his ass, and she jumps in the mirror. Whatever I've heard. I don't know the names of them. I just know them if I hear them. The scene that Rick kind of like practices his jujitsu or whatever the hell he does. Mm-hmm. The soundtrack.
Song.
The sound is it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because it's like an homage to him. But there's like another song. I don't know. It's dope, and I would like buy that soundtrack. And then what's her name? Tuesday Night does the opening song. It has the best opening too.
I guess I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch Dream Master.
Yeah, Dan. I'm bringing it to you tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because I don't have access to it myself here. Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, number 2.
Number 2. All right, here we go. So this is tough now, right? Because before I rewatched the first, I knew what my answer was going to be, what Tara thinks my answer was going to be. But after I rewatched the first, I had to question my order.
Oh,
so
that made you question it, not just it in general.
Can you shut your mouth? Can you shut your mouth right now? Can you shut your mouth?
My God.
So at number 2, I'm going to put Freddy versus Jason. I acknowledge everything that you guys said. Part of it is I haven't watched it in quite a while, and now hearing you guys talk about it, I kind of don't want to because I'd like to remember it as it was, not as it is. But I thought that the concept was, I've said this before, and Tara's probably going to flip out again, one of the best writings, or some of the best writing that either franchise has ever seen. I thought it was very clever how they, neutered Freddy in that, everyone was on a pill so they couldn't dream, so he couldn't kill anyone. He was frustrated, so he goes and taps Jason to go do his bidding.
I'm with you on that.
I actually agree with that. I said the only thing they got right, well, I don't think I said it here, but we've talked about it before. The only thing they got right was I think they found a clever way to like merge the two.
Yeah. Conceptually, it works, right? He sets this bulldog loose in the city and he loses control of it. You know what I mean? And then he has to come in and fight him to regain control. All of that works. Yeah, the acting wasn't great. Yeah, the story was tough. Yeah, I'm really also upset that they didn't have Kane Hodder in it. But ultimately, I loved it. I thought it was really clever. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a perfect like blend of the two franchises. It had tons of Easter eggs and winks and nods at both franchises, and it was just a great popcorn flick. Like I remember smiling the entire time watching that movie, being like, "Yeah, this is awesome! Fight!" I was Ken Watanabe years before him and Godzilla saying, "Let them fight." I thought it was great. It was a blast. I'm terrified to go and rewatch it, hearing you guys talk about it.
When's the last time you saw it?
Oof. It's been at least a decade.
Okay, so this is why. I mean, I can't believe you've been fighting hard and defending this terrible film, and you haven't even seen it in 10 years. I'm going to choke you.
I okay.
This whole time I thought he was like seen it recently and it's like, oh, it still holds up. He's
No,
defending something he saw when he
been
was
a while.
30 years old.
Actually, that may be a lie. It maybe in the last like 7 or 8 years.
Man,
I definitely watched it with my girlfriend. But regardless, anyways, I loved it, and so because of that, it's high up on my list.
Or because you're crazy.
Tara, number 2.
So again, I had a really hard time with my top 3, and so I ended up having the first Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, be number 2. Obviously, it's a classic. It's what started it all. It's the most terrifying Freddy, I think. But I don't know. I think it came down to like what had like the best story, what had the best characters, and watchability. I think you can kind of deduct and know what my top one is, but the first one has everything, right? It's the perfect movie, but I find myself I have to be in the mood to watch it. Like it's not the one it's not my go-to. So I think that's what ended up edging it out and making it number 2, but amazing film. Definitely one of my favorites, and yeah, I love it.
Okay, so number 2 for me is Dream Warriors. Just because, well, I mean, I just think Dream Warriors is great, just all around. I love the whole kind of horror brat pack, if you will. Like the team that kind of bands together to stop Freddy, and I think this is the last time that he's really terrifying, because as you said before, in part 4, he kind of starts going the other way. So this is the last time that Freddy is really scary. And I thought that this was, or would have been, the perfect transition from number 1. So if you take number 2 out, this is really the perfect sequel to the first one. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy the hell out of it. And, I think it's great that Nancy comes back and she's in a position where she's helping kids who are dreaming about Freddy. And, the doctors clearly have no clue what's going on. Don't even care
Don't
what's
get
going
me
on.
started on these doctors.
Yeah, the doctors are just idiots. But, the kids, when Nancy starts telling them that she knows and she's describing Freddy, and the look on their face like, okay, maybe she does know and she can help us. Like, I dig all that. So Dream Warriors, and I think we've probably, me and Tara have watched this one ad nauseum, but it never gets old to me. Like I can always watch it and watch it again. So number 2
it is
that one.
It is infinitely rewatchable. I completely agree.
All right, so here we go. Number 1.
Number 1. Yeah. I think it's obvious for all of us now, right? But number 1 for me is the original Nightmare on Elm Street. I feel like with most of these franchises, right? Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, the original like Hellraiser, all of these great like horror franchises. The first is just so tough to beat because it's such a good idea. They tend to be more simple. It's before they get convoluted with all these crazy backstories, and he doesn't have a kid, he doesn't have a wife, he wasn't on trial yet. You know what I mean? It's just so simple and so visceral. When I was just rewatching this, before we were recording this podcast, and my girlfriend like walked into the room while I was watching it, and she just couldn't help but sit down and watch it with me, and she even said, she's like, God, this movie's so good. And I was like, yeah, man, I'd forgotten how great it is and how much I love it. It's the perfect blend of like, it's terrifying, it's gorgeous. Like I said, that like bed blood scene is, to me, just stunning to watch. I don't know. It's so well made. It's hard to beat.
Tara, number 1.
Number 1 for me is part 3, Dream Warriors. For all the things that you guys kind of said before, I think for me, and again, it's really hard for me to now, even like hearing you guys talk about part 1, like I'm even starting to shift my ranking, but like I think I'll stick with it being number 1, because 1 introduces my favorite character in the whole franchise, Kincaid, who is hysterical. Kincaid is just like a little shining gem. I'm so happy that he was in the 4th one. You got Larry Fishburne. You got a lot of like iconic kills, which was obviously
That's right. Lawrence Fishburne was in
one of my favorite kills. Obviously, we talked about it earlier. Philip, Jennifer, and Welcome to Primetime, Bitch. One of the probably most famous ad libs of all time. You know, I love that it was like a team. Even though rewatching it like recently, I've kind of realized that they actually never were formidable opponents for Freddy. Like they actually never really fought him or fought back at all.
A lot of them were killed off pretty easily.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
actually, this is not a warrior at all. But okay, I'll roll with it. The soundtrack. How could you not like the song "Dream Warriors"? That shit is amazing. Classic '80s hair metal.
Dokken.
Yeah, Dokken. It's fantastic. The movie is just it's superb, right? He's still scary. It's kind of the start of the one-liners. And yeah, and obviously Nancy coming back is a big deal.
How about Nancy dying is a big deal.
Oh yeah, that was my next thing. Yes, Nancy dying. Another thing I would like an apology for. I just don't appreciate. Like no one asked me permission to kill her, to kill Dan, to kill Rick. I mean, unacceptable.
Real quick, where does that rank as far as like
devastation?
Devastating deaths for characters. Like,
in ever or in Freddy in the franchise?
Well, let's say ever.
Nancy. See, the thing is with me, I feel like I didn't get the raw deal like everybody else. Like I was 1 year old. I wasn't even born when this movie came out. Actually, it came out in '87, so I wasn't even born. So I didn't get that theater going experience like my sisters did, who were probably like tweens, and they like saw it and like got to see Nancy die. I think before I even saw the movie, I knew Nancy was dead, so I didn't get to have that shock value. Nonetheless, it's still very upsetting because she's just not supposed to die, and she dies for a stupid reason. Like why all these people that have died? Why do you think your dad of all your friends is gonna come back to say goodbye? And you're still in the dream world. You're still in Freddy's house. Why the F do you think your dad's coming down to say bye, princess? Like it was a trap, a clear trap, and Nancy's an idiot in her last moments.
How about when they're fighting the skeleton in the
that shit is hysterical.
The junkyard. That's pretty fun.
When he swipes at Neil and he like falls. It's so, and then at the end when he goes rah, 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 like he like when he has like a victory stance, it's so funny. Sorry, Dan, you couldn't see me moving like the skeleton.
Yeah, I couldn't. Nor could our listeners, but sure.
So number one for me is the first Nightmare on Elm Street because it's the one that started it all, and for everything that you said, Dan, I just I agree with you completely, and that's why it's my number one. And I love the opening sequence when the titles are on and we're watching him make his glove. That's just pretty cool, and it sets a good tone for what we can expect for the rest of the film. So, and even his weapon is so unique that when you see it, you're like, oh shit, okay.
I do love the opening scene of the first one when he's making it. It's so weird. It's like you just see this weird man with dirty fingernails, which is one of my greatest fear. Somebody with dirty fingernails making this nasty glove and breathing weird. I'm like, and then you're kind of just like the whole time like, what the F is he doing?
Yeah.
All we have to do to make, I got the perfect horror movie that would scare you, Tara.
Here we go. Somebody
with dirty nails, chip nail polish, popping gum for 2 hours.
Popping gum, yeah. Yep.
Do you know how Freddy kills that deaf kid Carlos?
Yeah, scratching.
That's probably what would happen to me. It would be like someone popping gum until my head explodes.
Yeah.
You're a hater, both of you. Goodbye.
Oh man.
All right, so that was a lot of fun ranking them, and let me know what your ranking would be for the entire Nightmare on Elm Street franchise.
Hopefully, you all agree with me.
I hope. I don't want anybody to ever agree with Tara.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Don't forget to do that. Fans Perspective homepage, starsandcelebs.com, and on Instagram, on Facebook, where you can follow Stars and Celebs as well. So real quick, let's tie this up with a bow here, and let's just talk about the future of the franchise, if there is one. I kind of hope that there is, because I know that sometimes we can see the remakes and the continuations, and part of us can be like, enough is enough. But these characters, especially Freddy, is so iconic and so loved at this point that we don't want to see them go away. And there is some rumblings of Robert Englund wanting to do one more.
Oh yeah, he said one last time.
Yep, and there's also some rumblings coming from Robert Englund himself that he would like to see Kevin Bacon take over the role of Freddy Krueger for future installments. I don't know where it stands as far as like what's in production or what's just in talks of a new Nightmare movie, but what do you guys think? Do you want to see it continue? Do you want him to come back, or do you want it to just be over with at this point because the remake was so bad?
Well,
No, I don't.
yeah,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tara. Oh, I would love to see another entry in the franchise, and I think that I mean, while I hate to see remakes and reboots and things like that, because God, that's all we get nowadays. I think that there's a real opportunity to do a true sequel here and simplify it again. That's the problem with this series, right? And I think that Halloween proved that it could be done. The new Halloween movie was very simple, very back to basics. It echoed the original Halloween in a lot of ways, good or bad. But I think that's the secret sauce, is just get rid of all the convoluted backstory and just make it another creepy movie with a creepy dude terrorizing you in your dreams. Like, he can have a pun or two. That's fine. We don't have to strip all that away. But just a lot less jokey, a lot less cartoonish, and play up the creep factor again. I think they've got one more in them, and I think they can take lessons from a lot of other franchises that have respawned lately, and go out with a real bang.
Agreed. I think things are headed in the right direction. Just this week, Wes Craven's, who obviously passed away in 2015, his estate just recently got the domestic rights to the franchise again. So while New Line and Warner Brothers still owns the international rights, it's it's like 1 inch closer to being to someone with some sense being able to help have a hand in rebooting the franchise. Apparently, the director, who I think his name is Alexander Aja, he directed Crawl, the recent like crocodile movie from the summer. He wants to reboot the series and like direct a reboot. So could be interesting. With all of the things in play, like Robert Englund saying he'll do one last thing, and other people kind of like knocking on the door, and then like it kind of going back home to Wes Craven and his estate. I think things are moving in the right direction. I would love to see it have a successful reboot. I think of all of them, I think of all the big three, like Jason, Michael, Freddy, I think Freddy's obviously the hardest to kind of replicate or like to reboot because it's so rooted in Robert Englund. The other two have masks. It can be anybody. It doesn't really matter. But I think Robert Englund is Freddy and brought a lot to the character. So I think people are obviously going to hold it to a heavier kind of standard. So I think it will be hard, but if Robert thinks Kevin Bacon can do it, then I guess I'm on board with seeing how that could work out.
See, I just I don't mind that they want to continue it or bring it back. And remakes usually, like I said, they don't really hold up for the most part. But I'm always good for them as long as they're good. And I think the most important thing, especially with a character like Freddy Krueger, is if somebody's going to remake it, they have to actually care about the franchise and care about the character.
It needs to be a fan.
It needs to be somebody who's a fan of it, right?
That's
my opinion. But what about other potential crossovers? Because I have seen some stuff of maybe remaking Freddy vs. Jason. There's talks of doing Freddy vs. Chucky. Of course, we have the Freddy vs. Ash vs. Jason comic book, which there was some talks of putting Ash into it as well in movie form.
I think last year I heard about someone was trying to do a reboot with starting from Dream Warriors. They were going to remake Dream Warriors.
So that's one. But
yeah, that'd be interesting.
But what about the crossover? Especially now when there's a lot of movie companies that are doing crossovers, and the MCU started it with, Warner Brothers tried to do it, Universal tried to do it, although it failed with the whole the Dark Universe.
Yeah.
Would you want to see like a horror crossover, another one?
Not for me. Not with Freddy. I don't think Freddy he only really makes sense with Jason to me. Like even Michael, I don't think would be as fun. So it would be a hard no for me from seeing. I just want to see Freddy. I don't need to see him unless it's Jason. Sure, do that one again. But like I don't want to see him with Chucky or Leprechaun or Pinhead or Michael or any of those other fools.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I feel it worked with Jason, and I can't think of another franchise that it would work with. Like, because the Chucky, also another one, has gone off the rails. Like, convoluted, crazy, cartoonish, absurd. Like,
Ridiculous.
Yeah, and I just can't, like, I don't know. There was just, they had an idea with Freddy versus Jason, and if they could just figure out a way to execute it better, I feel like that's it. But I don't think anyone else's franchise would cross over right. It doesn't make sense. Like I couldn't imagine Freddy versus a Cenobite. Like that just doesn't make any sense to me. You know what I mean? Like those two things are not even remotely in the same world to me. Wow. I don't think so.
All right. Well, I mean, we'll see what happens.
Don't worry, guys. I will step up and I'll be the director.
You gonna do it?
All right.
I'm gonna do it. I've decided.
And then Freddy's gonna start wearing a pink sweater.
Yeah.
That's your favorite color.
Freddy's gonna kill anybody who chews gum.
All right then.
All right. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this. I hope you had fun.
It was your pleasure.
This was a blast.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining, and I hope that you come back in the future. I definitely would love to have you on some more.
Absolutely. I am game.
Just to give the listeners of what's to come, what I got lined up that I would like to do. Definitely some more watch-alongs. We did the watch-along episode of The Warriors, and I was thinking of doing one about No Holds Barred. If you're a wrestling fan, you know what that is. The all-time classic Hulk Hogan movie. But there's so many movies that we can do watch-alongs to that I think would be a lot of fun. And you can send me your ideas or pics of what you would want that to be. And then, if you want to ever do a watch along, I think that'd be a lot of fun to do.
Awesome. Sure.
Also, we got the new Terminator movie coming out, which actually has piqued my interest a little bit more as I watch the trailers more. So it's also this year's the anniversary of the original Terminator movie. So I want to do a Terminator retrospective because I love that franchise. So I think that would be fun to do. Also this year, Aliens is celebrating an anniversary. There's so much to talk about. Don't rush me, Taryn. There's a lot to talk about, and a lot of fun stuff going to be coming your way on the Fans Perspective. Don't forget to visit startsandcelebs.com, chud.com. Follow us on Instagram. Leave your comments right here on SoundCloud where you're tuning in. And again, thank you, and I'll see you next time right here on the Fans Perspective. See you later.
Bye, guys.